Have you ever been so desperate for answers that you'd do anything to get them, even if it meant going against everything you once believed? This is the story of a man who did just that. His name was Saul, the first king of Israel. When he found himself surrounded by enemies and abandoned by God, he sought answers in the darkest of places, the home of a mysterious woman known as the Witch of Endor. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more gripping biblical stories and lessons that bring the past to life. The night was thick with the scent of fear. I, Saul, the anointed king of Israel, stood at the edge of my army's camp, staring into the distant Philistine fires that burned against the horizon. Their numbers were countless. Their swords glimmered in the moonlight, a deadly reminder that war was inevitable. I gripped the hilt of my own blade, my hands slick with sweat. Where was God? I had called upon him. I had pleaded for guidance. I had sought dreams, cast lots with the Urim and Thummim, and even waited in silence for a prophet's voice. But heaven remained shut to me. The weight of my past sins, my disobedience to the Lord's commands, pressed down on me like an iron yoke. I knew I had strayed, yet this silence was unbearable. I needed an answer, any answer. Then, in a whisper, the forbidden thought came to me. Find a medium. Speak to the dead. Seek Samuel, ***. Samuel, the prophet who had once anointed me, who had spoken with the voice of God himself. He was dead now, long gone to the realm of Sheol. But what if I could hear his wisdom one last time? What if he could tell me what to do? I had banished all the spiritists and necromancers from Israel, obeying God's law. Yet now, in the dead of night, I found myself turning to the very thing I once condemned. I summoned my closest men. Find me a woman with a familiar spirit, I ordered, my voice hoarse. They hesitated, but they knew better than to question me. One of them spoke. There is a woman in Endor, my king. A medium. Endor, a place of secrecy and shadows. I pulled my cloak tightly around me, concealing my identity, and set off into the darkness. The journey was perilous, for Endor lay behind enemy lines. We rode fast and silent, the hooves of our horses muffled by the damp earth. My heart pounded as we approached the hidden dwelling. A single candle flickered inside. I dismounted and knocked. The door creaked open, revealing a woman with tired, knowing eyes. Her gaze swept over me, and in that moment, I felt as if she could see straight into my soul. You seek something forbidden, she murmured. I swallowed hard. I need you to summon a spirit for me. The woman's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Surely you know what King Saul has done, she said. He has driven out all mediums and spiritists from the land. Why do you set a trap for my life? I took a step closer. As the Lord lives, you will not be punished for this, I swore, my voice trembling with urgency. She studied me for a long moment. Then, with a deep sigh, she stepped aside. Enter, she said, and tell me, whom shall I bring up for you? I hesitated for only a moment. The name burned on my tongue, and I spoke it aloud. Samuel. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows along the walls of the small chamber. The air was thick with the scent of aged herbs and something more ancient, something beyond the realm of the living. The woman before me, the Witch of Endor, studied me with wary eyes, her fingers trembling slightly as she prepared for the summoning. I knew the risks. The law of Moses was clear. Divination, necromancy, and speaking with spirits were strictly forbidden. I had upheld this decree myself, driving out all mediums and spiritists from the land in an effort to remain obedient to God. And yet, here I was, standing before one in secret, desperate to hear the voice of a prophet long gone. As I watched her move about the room, my mind drifted back to the old teachings. Since the days of Moses, our people had been warned against the practices of the Canaanites. Their sorcery and idol worship had drawn them into darkness, and the Lord had declared such things an abomination. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations there. The words of Deuteronomy echoed in my mind. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. I shuddered at the memory. I had lived my life knowing these laws, enforcing them, punishing those who dared defy them. But now I found myself in the darkness, searching for the very thing I had once condemned. What irony! What despair! The witch finally turned to me, her expression unreadable. "I will do as you ask," she said, her voice low. "But understand this. What you seek comes with a price. A price. I had already paid more than I could bear. The silence of God had been more torment than any punishment man could devise. If the Lord would not answer me through dreams, through the Urim, or through prophets, then I would force an answer another way." She began the ritual, murmuring words I could not understand, her hands tracing symbols in the air. The room grew colder, and a strange wind stirred around us. My heart pounded. I had spent my life fighting enemies on the battlefield, yet this unseen force terrified me more than 1,000 Philistine swords ever could. And then suddenly she gasped. Her body trembled, her eyes wide with terror. "I see a spirit coming up from the ground," she whispered. I stepped forward, my breath caught in my throat. "What does he look like?" She hesitated before answering, her voice barely more than a whisper. "An old man is coming up, wrapped in a robe." My knees nearly buckled. I knew before she even spoke his name. Samuel. 1. Desperation leads to destruction. Saul's greatest mistake was allowing fear and desperation to drive him toward forbidden practices. When we act out of panic rather than faith, we often make decisions that lead to greater ruin. 2. The price of forbidden knowledge. Seeking power through dark and unnatural means always comes at a cost. Whether it's necromancy, deception, or manipulation, tampering with forces beyond our control can bring devastating consequences. 3. The inescapability of fate. Despite summoning Samuel's spirit, Saul could not change his destiny. This teaches us that some things are meant to be, and trying to escape them only brings more suffering. 4. Consequences of disobedience. Saul's downfall was a direct result of his disobedience to God. Ignoring wisdom, rejecting truth, and making selfish choices often lead to destruction. 5. The danger of seeking the wrong guidance. Instead of seeking God's wisdom, Saul turned to the Witch of Endor, a choice. 6. Power without morality is dangerous. The Witch of Endor had power, but it did not bring her peace or protection. True power must be guided by wisdom and morality. Otherwise, it leads to fear, destruction, and suffering. 7. Ignoring warnings leads to tragedy. Saul had been warned multiple times to trust in God and turn away from his sinful ways. Yet he ignored every warning and ultimately paid the price. This reminds us to heed wisdom before it's too late. 8. The past should stay buried. Saul's desire to summon Samuel's spirit represents the dangers of digging up things best left alone. Sometimes, searching for answers in the past only brings more pain and regret instead of closure. 9. Evil has a way of lingering. Even after the events of Saul's demise, Endor remained a cursed place. This reflects how evil decisions and dark deeds leave lasting consequences, not just for the one who commits them, but for generations to come. 10. Faith over fear. Ultimately, the story of the Witch of Endor warns against letting fear drive our choices. Saul's lack of faith led him down a dark path, but had he trusted in God, his fate may have been different. In times of fear, we must turn to faith, not darkness. The tale of the Witch of Endor is both terrifying and thought-provoking. It serves as a warning about the dangers of desperation, disobedience, and seeking power in the wrong places. It reminds us that some mysteries should remain untouched, and that true guidance comes from faith, not fear.